Hi, and welcome to Indigenism. I'm here today to answer the question of what is decolonization and how can it be in a tarot deck, if it can be in a tarot deck. I was asked about this in an interview for Tarot of the QTPOC, and the link for that is going to be in the description box of this bio. It's a good interview. All the interviews on there are great. You should read them and check out the deck list when you're looking for where am I going to find a diverse deck. That and indie deck review would be places to go. So, we're going to talk about what is decolonization, what is anti-colonial, indigenism, is ethnic nationalism, is land back ethnic nationalism, and how is decolonization in a tarot deck. So we're going to cover all those things, and I'm going to try and be somewhat brief so I can upload this as I wait to be able to get better equipment. Okay, so what is decolonization? Decolonization is the act of undoing colonialism. D means to undo in the language roots that we use. So it means to undo colonialism. It can be used to mean other things, but it doesn't mean that those things become decolonization just because you use the word. Likewise, decolonizing the tarot doesn't create decolonization. It creates space for it. It lets us talk about it. Decolonizing, undoing colonialism in the tarot gives us a language to talk about lives from a decolonial worldview. Because to actually decolonize is to undo colonialism. And I can't give you a prescription for what decolonization is because it's land-based. It's based on the land, not the borders, the land. And we'll get to that a bit in what is Indigenism. So decolonization is actually undoing colonialism. And so that does involve undoing colonial states. It has to. It inherently means that. And so we get to anti-colonial. Anti-colonial is to oppose colonization or colonialism. And so if you are reading tarot from a decolonial standpoint, it is an act of colonization, a small act, and hopefully you make bigger acts from there. But it's a small act of anti-colonialism, opposing colonialism by speaking its truth. And speaking its truth in people's lives, empowering people by speaking its truth in their lives. And when people are empowered by having the truth of colonialism spoken in their lives, empowered in that small act of anti-colonialism, they feel the power to perhaps act in ways that are bigger acts of anti-colonialism that can lead to, preparing things for decolonization. So, a lot of times I will say decolonization is the act of indigenous people, and on the lands that they're from. And, in putting in place those land-based systems, because they're the ones with that knowledge. You can't teach that knowledge in 7 years in an institution. You can teach what colonialism is in 7 years in an institution, but you can't teach an entire culture's understanding of governance and all the land-based systems in 7 years, whether it's your culture or someone else's. You can't learn that in 7 years. You can't learn that in 7 years in an institution. Okay, I should move on. And so anti-colonial is like the breaking down of the structures. It's the tower. It's being that lightning striking the tower. And decolonization is like the star. But you have to prepare for the star like beforehand. That's why you go through all those rough cards before you get to the tower. Right? And like it's up and down, it's up and down. And it goes back further than, just starting at death. You go through the justice system. You go through dead time or the hanged man. You go through death. You try and balance it out in temperance so you can take down the devil and destroy its systems, of which is, colonialism. So, there's a lot of breaking down of things, while there's also this preparation for decolonization. So we can read it into tarot, but we have to actually do the acts. And so as much as I say decolonization is for Indigenous people to do, anti-colonial work is for everybody to do. Breaking down that system is for everybody to do. Indigenism. Indigenism is it's land-based. It's the indigenous systems of the land that you're on, as understood by the indigenous people of that land. And so, like decolonization, I can't give you a prescription for it. We can talk about understandings of what Indigenism is, but how it's enacted, how it plays out, it is based on the land that it's on. So it's different in different places at different times, as Jacqueline Lasky said. So people ask, is Indigenism, is land back, is decolonization ethnic nationalism? Kind of. But not from a colonial perspective. A colonial perspective thinks that states are nations, and they're not. Not by any proper description. It's just a word that people are more comfortable with, because a nation is actually an entirely different thing. It is cultural and tied by familiarity, trade, and often ethics. So that's why Indigenous nations hold land-based laws within nations, and that's why there is similarities and crossovers, because there isn't borders, there's territories, and territories overlap. And so the people here and the people here are looking after the same kind of land. And the land has its laws, which are indigenous laws. They are land-based. They're based on the laws of that land to protect all the beings, human and non-human, of that land. And so decolonization, indigenism looks different in different places, and it has an ethnic nationalist flavor to it, because that's who holds those complete understandings. Not everybody within those nations, but that's where the people with complete understandings hold them. And they are the people who need to reenact those systems on this land, so that everybody can learn how to live by the laws of that land. It's not an in and out in the way that colonial status and certified degree of Indian blood is, that makes Indigenous people fight over their blood quantums as taught by colonialism, just as it's not a colonial understanding of nationhood. It's something others can join, but not instantly. Not as easy as citizenship. Because its requirements are different. It doesn't serve instant gratification very well. So how is decolonization in a tarot deck, which I sort of already spoke to. It's a decolonial lens or worldview, so that we can speak truth to colonialism, to inspire and heal and build up and empower in pathways towards anti-colonial and decolonial work, whichever part of that you are responsible for fulfilling. And so it's a tool to help do that on large and small scales. And sometimes that small scale is as simple as how you read somebody's life to them, right? And sometimes it's on a big scale of seeing things differently. You know, when we look at the story of the majors and who's in them, we have like a pretty clear message in there that can be read in a variety of ways. But you get to the Tower card to 16, and you're told to be the lightning and strike down the systems and structures which say they are serving you but aren't actually serving you. And yet we've come to a place where these ideas were being put into tarot at a time that all this was being developed, and we've learned to read it exactly as you know, these guys hoped we would. So it's interesting, and that's what all this has to do with tarot.